The scoreboard in Las Vegas didn't just show a loss, it showed a power shift. Indiana Fever 109, Las Vegas Aces 75. A 34-point embarrassment in the house of the back-to-back champions on national TV. And if you think this was some random hot night, it was. This was the third time in just 8 days the Fever took down the champs. 3 wins in a week against the team that was supposed to be an untouchable super team. That's not luck, that's a message. Because on this night, a player fans called inconsistent suddenly turned into a human flamethrower. A guard the internet labeled selfish quietly dropped 8 assists and shredded that narrative in one game. And Caitlin Clark, she controlled the entire flow of the night while still on a minute's restriction. So here's the real question. Did we just watch a dynasty collapse in real time? Or are we overreacting to one brutal week? Before we break it down, pause for a second and tell me in the comments. Type dynasty if you think the Aces bounce back. Or new era if you think the Fever just stole the throne. Because by the end of this video, you might change your answer. Picture this. Las Vegas bright lights, home of the back-to-back WNBA champions. The Aces were supposed to be the standard, the measuring stick, the if you can beat them, you're for real team. Indiana.
Before this game here really wasn't too good for, man, why come it's not letting me pull up the box score, bro? Where's the box score, bro? Let's pull up the box score real quick, guys. Now, as we pull up the box score here, man, the Indiana Fever went to Las Vegas and put belt to ass. Whole lot of BTA going down, man. Monique Billings, 25 points, 25 minutes played, 10 rebounds, 3 of 6 from the field, 101 from 3. Now,
Indiana wasn't supposed to be that team. Coming into the season, the Fever were labeled young, incomplete, and way too dependent on a rookie superstar. Analysts questioned the roster construction, the depth, even the coaching fit. People said they'd be fun to watch, but nowhere near ready to challenge the powerhouses of the league. Then they walked into Michelob Ultra Arena and absolutely destroyed the champs. 109-75, a 34-point beatdown. Not a squeak-by win, not a they survived late finish. By the final minutes, the only real question left was how big the margin would get. And buried inside that final score is the craziest detail. This was the 3rd win over the Aces in just 8 days. 1 week, 3 games, same opponent, same result, Fever on top. At that point, you can't call it a fluke. You can't hide behind off night or the shots just didn't fall. When one team owns another 3 times in a row, that's a matchup problem. That's a system problem. That's a power structure problem. What makes this particular game different, though, is who was on the floor. In the earlier wins, Indiana proved they could survive without Caitlin Clark. They showed they could grind out wins even when their franchise player was sidelined. But in this one, Clark actually played. Limited minutes, strict restriction, and the Fever didn't just survive. They exploded. This was Caitlin carries everything. This was a complete unified demolition of the champs. Role players went nuclear. The defense locked in. The ball moved. And Vegas, the same team that once bullied everybody else, suddenly looked like the one getting bullied in their own building. The image that lingers is almost uncomfortable. A Ja Wilson, a face of the league, fighting through obvious physical issues while her team gets run off the floor. Becky Hammon on the sideline, forced to watch a supposed rebuilding team turn her home court into a statement stage. Nobody had this in their preseason predictions. Nobody had Indiana humiliates Vegas by 34, 3 times in 8 days on their bingo card back in April. And yet here we are. But the real story of this night doesn't start with a superstar. It starts with a player fans have argued about all season. who suddenly turned into the most dangerous shooter in the building. If you've followed the Fever this year, you've heard the debates around Sophie Cunningham. Some
Cunningham was to go to another team. She's not coming off the bench. They're going to implement her into the starting lineup, bro. Telling you right now. So the Indiana Fever was 38 of 68 from the field. The Aces shot bad from the field, man. They was 27 to 69. It's just something about when the Aces play the Fever, when Aaliyah Boston plays, it's a totally different game. Totally different game. I told y'all this last year. A'ja Wilson don't know what to do with Aaliyah Boston. She can't stop her. She bully her.
Fans love her toughness, her edge, her willingness to get under opponents' skin. Others question her contract, her role, and especially her inconsistency. One game, she's a spark. The next, she's a black hole. Her plus-minus has swung wildly from deeply negative to quietly elite. There have been constant conversations about whether she should start, come off the bench, or even be part of the long-term plan at all. On this night, none of that chatter mattered. Against the defending champions, Sophie Cunningham turned into a walking flamethrower. She didn't just hit shots. She buried Las Vegas under a mountain of threes. 7 of 9 from the field. 6 of 7 from deep. That's 85.7% from 3 against the champs, in their building, in just 23 minutes. 20 points, plus 30 in the plus-minus column. That's not a role player having a nice game. That's a player detonating every defensive plan the Aces tried to run. Every time she caught the ball in space, the arena felt like it was bracing for another dagger. And here's why that matters more than just numbers. Vegas wasn't playing her like some afterthought. This is a team that prides itself on knowing scouting reports, understanding who to close out on and who to help off of. They knew Cunningham could shoot. They just couldn't stop it. Her performance instantly changed the geometry of the floor. Once Vegas realized she was on one of those rare can't-miss nights, their defense had to stretch. Help rotations got slower. Closeouts got more desperate. Suddenly, driving lanes opened for guards. Boston had more space to operate inside. Clark and Mitchell found easier reads.
Magnificent that they did that, man. The biggest lead was by 34 points. And yeah, overall, great win for the Fever. Now we got to talk about Caitlin Clark making history. So Caitlin Clark has another record in the record books, man. Caitlin Clark has become the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 600 assists in only 72 damn games. Talk about shagoat. That's what she is, the shagoat, bruh. Caitlin Clark is diabolical on the basketball court.
That's how one shooter can break a system. For a player who's been under a microscope all year, this game flipped the narrative. Instead of being the question mark, she became the ignition. The player you circle on the film afterward and say, if she does that, we're in trouble. And it raises a bigger question. If this is even close to the version of Sophie the Fever can unlock consistently, maybe not 85% from 3, but a confident, reliable perimeter threat, defenses around the league are going to have to completely rethink how they guard Indiana. You can't double Clark as aggressively. You can't sag off the wings. You can't load up on Boston with extra help. Cunningham's outburst didn't just win a game, it sent a warning. But while she was breaking nets, something else was happening quietly in the background. A different player was dismantling a very loud narrative about herself, one assist at a time. Scroll through social media during a Fever game, and you'll see the same storyline pop up over and over. Kelsey Mitchell doesn't pass. She kills the ball movement. She just wants to score. When Caitlin Clark missed time earlier in the season, those voices got even louder. With Clark out, Mitchell's usage spiked. She took more shots, drove more, hunted her own offense. And in a few games, the offense really did start to feel heavy, like everyone was just watching her go one-on-one. So people ran with it. She's selfish. She's hurting the team. What most of those takes ignored is the context. When your primary creator is on the bench in street clothes, someone has to step into that role. That naturally means more shots, more decision-making, more risk. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes it doesn't. But against the aces in this game, there was no selfish Mitchell. There was only complete Mitchell. 27 points on 8 for 16 shooting. A perfect 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Ruthless attacking, drawing contact, punishing mistakes.
Somebody said, I know y'all was going to do this. Fever go up by 20 because of Kelsey and Aaliyah Boston. Now y'all want to keep Caitlin Clark on the floor and act like she's the reason they win in this game. What? If everybody wasn't holding her back, she would break more records, definitely. So imagine what she could do with qualified coaches that's not pushing and woke DII culture agenda. We're going to skip past that one. Somebody said, this is the best game I've seen the Fever play in the CCX.
And then the number that silenced the narrative, 8 assists. Add in Caitlin Clark's 6 assists, and your 2 starting guards combined for 14 assists in a 109-point explosion. That's not ball stopping. That's ball sharing at a high level. Watch the way Mitchell played. She attacked when defenders overplayed the pass. She drove gaps when help was late. But as soon as the defense collapsed, the ball moved. Kick-outs to shooters, drop-offs to the bigs, hit-ahead passes in transition. This wasn't hero ball. This was a guard who read the floor and punished whatever mistake the defense made. The doesn't pass narrative doesn't survive this kind of performance. The numbers bury it. And beyond one box score, it reveals something bigger about the Fever's ceiling. If Mitchell is not just a scorer but a playmaking scorer, everything opens up. Clark doesn't have to carry every single possession. Defenses can't just load up on one ball handler. Secondary actions, like hitting Cunningham on the weak side or Boston sealing inside, become easier and cleaner. It's also a psychological shift. When a player who's been called selfish publicly has a night like this, it sends a quiet message to the locker room. I'm here to win. I'll do whatever it takes. And it sets the stage for the most dangerous version of the Fever offense, one where multiple guards can both score and create, and defenses are constantly guessing who's really initiating the action. But the wildest part of this blowout is that all of this was happening while their biggest star still wasn't fully unleashed. Because Caitlin Clark wasn't out there hunting for 30. She was doing something much more subtle and maybe even more terrifying. Before this matchup, there was a lot of noise online about Caitlin Clark's minutes. Some people were convinced there was some kind of hidden agenda, that the team was holding her back, or that there were deeper issues behind the scenes. Fans parsed every quote, every substitution pattern, every second she sat on the bench. But when you strip away the theories, the reality was simple. She was on a strict 20-25 minute restriction. Clark herself said it. Coach Stephanie White backed it up. It was about protecting her long-term health, managing back issues, groin discomfort, and rebuilding her conditioning during a brutal first pro season. So what do you do when your minutes are limited? Most young stars would try to force it, hunt shots, chase a big scoring number in a short window. Clark didn't. Instead, she did exactly what a high-level point guard is supposed to do. She controlled the game without needing to dominate the scoring column. In 24 minutes and 25 seconds, she finished with 12 points, 6 assists, and 7 rebounds. A solid +6 on the night. Only one three-pointer fell. She went just 1 for 5 from deep, which is a clear sign that her shooting rhythm and mechanics are still working their way back into top form. But here's the scary part for other teams. Even with her shot not fully back, she still dictated the tempo. Watch the film and you'll see it. She pushes in transition, forces the defense to sprint backwards and creates early advantages. In the half-court, she snakes through pick and rolls, hits the short roll, skips the ball to weak side shooters, and keeps the ball moving when it doesn't need to stick. Those 6 assists were not empty stats. They were the visible part of a much larger impact. Over her first 4 games back from that time off, she racked up 18 total assists, 4.5 per game, all while coming off the bench or playing under clear restrictions. That's not a player being hidden. That's a team being careful and a star adjusting like a pro. And then there's the invisible part, gravity. Even when her 3 isn't dropping, defenses play her as if it might start falling at any second. They overreact to her pick and rolls. They send extra bodies into her driving lanes, help defenders cheat toward her side of the floor. And when that happens, someone else is open. On this night, that someone else was often Sophie on the perimeter, or Boston diving into space, or Mitchell curling off movement. Clark didn't need to score 30 to break the Aces' defense. Her presence alone, plus the read she made, did it. The most alarming thing for the rest of the league is this. This blowout happened with a controlled version of Caitlin Clark. Limited minutes, jumper still in recovery mode, focused more on orchestration than domination. So what happens when the restriction is gone, and the supporting cast that just blew out the champs is fully ready to run with her? We got a preview of that answer from the people around her. If you only look at headlines, you'd think the Fever are just Caitlin Clark and friends. This game made it very clear. The friends are a problem all by themselves. Start with Aaliyah Boston. Down low, she was a force. 11 rebounds, constant presence in the paint, and a huge reason the Aces never built any rhythm around the rim. Second chance points, limited. Clean looks in the lane, rare. And the matchup everyone watches, A'ja Wilson versus Aaliyah Boston. Fans have been pointing this out since last year. When Boston is on the floor, the entire dynamic of that matchup shifts. Wilson is still incredible, but she doesn't look comfortable. Boston's strength, positioning, and physicality seem to knock the Aces out of their usual flow. Once again, that pattern showed up. Vegas didn't look like the aggressor. They looked like the team reacting. Then there's Tiasha Harris. On a night where stars and scorers got most of the attention, Harris quietly put up one of the most telling numbers of the game. A +35 plus minus, the highest on either team. That doesn't happen by accident. She was everywhere defensively, chasing over screens, cutting off drives, getting into passing lanes. She helped set the tone that this wasn't going to be a soft, casual regular season game. It was going to be uncomfortable for Vegas from the opening tip. Offensively, she didn't force anything. She played her role, moved the ball, and knocked down shots when the defense dared her to. That kind of low-maintenance, high-impact guard is exactly what a team with stars needs to function. Add all of that to the performances we already talked about. Cunningham shooting the lights out. Mitchell scoring and creating at a high level. Clark running the show in a controlled role. And then stack the team numbers on top of it. 38 of 68 from the field, about 55% shooting as a team. Nearly 48% from 3. Largest lead, 34 points. Meanwhile, the Aces went just 27 of 69 from the field. Cold from the floor, out of rhythm, and clearly flustered by Indiana's pressure and pace. This is what a real contender looks like. Not a team where one player has to be superhuman every single night just to keep them competitive, but a roster where the star can simply do her job and still dominate the tempo. The shooters can change the scoreboard in a few possessions. The bigs can control the glass and the paint. The guards can lock up defensively and punish every mistake. For months, the loudest voices dismissed the Fever as a one-woman show propped up by hype. Now, the supporting cast is winning games with and without their star, and developing a swagger that you can't fake. But to fully understand the weight of this shift, you have to look at what's happening on the other side, to the team that used to make other people feel this way. Not long ago, the Las Vegas Aces looked untouchable. Back-to-back championships, An MVP in Aja Wilson, a stacked roster with stars at multiple positions, a coach in Becky Hammon who was praised for her intensity, her confidence, and her ability to keep the team locked in, night after night. People talked about a dynasty, not just a good team. Now that same franchise is sitting on a shocking 8-15 record. And the Fever, a team most analysts counted out before the season started, have just beaten them 3 times in 8 days, capped by a 34-point demolition in their own arena. So what's going on? First, the obvious. This is not a fully healthy Aces squad. Aja Wilson has been clearly fighting through physical issues, still trying to anchor both the offense and defense. When your best player isn't at her peak, everyone else feels the pressure. Second, depth and fatigue. After multiple deep playoff runs, heavy minutes, and the pressure of constantly being the hunted, it adds up. Fans and reporters have pointed to the wear and tear, the rotation questions, and the fact that some role players from past runs aren't there anymore. Then there's the mentality. Earlier in the season, Becky Hammon made some very strong comments about her team's defense and toughness, comments that were meant to light a fire. At the time, they sounded like classic championship fuel. Push the group, keep the edge, demand more. But now, in the context of an 8-15 record and repeated losses to a so-called up-and-coming team, those comments feel different. Instead of sounding like controlled intensity, they start to look more like frustration. It's important to be clear. We don't know everything happening behind the scenes. We're not in the locker room. We can't say with certainty that the chemistry is broken or that the championship window is closing for good. But we do know this. The Aces are no longer the team other franchises are afraid to see on the schedule. The results, not the rumors, tell that story. Losing once to a hungry young team, it happens. Losing twice in a row, now you're raising eyebrows. Losing 3 times in 8 days, including a 34-point embarrassment at home, that's a crisis. And what makes it worse for Vegas is who they're losing to and how. They're getting outshot, out-rebounded, and out-hustled by a roster that was dismissed as too young and not ready. They're watching role players, not just stars, tear them apart. They're getting exposed in areas where they used to dominate. Toughness, poise, execution in big moments. Around the league, fans and analysts are starting to ask hard questions. Is this just a rough stretch that a former champion will eventually snap out of? Or are we watching the early stages of a dynasty quietly fading, while a new contender rises right in front of them? The Fever's blowout doesn't give us every answer. But when you zoom out and look at Clark's growing list of records, the team's evolution and the Aces' regression, the bigger picture starts to come into focus. To really understand why this one game matters so much, you have to step back and look at the arc of Caitlin Clark's young WNBA career and how fast Indiana has evolved around her. Even before this matchup with Las Vegas, Clark was stacking historic numbers at a ridiculous pace. Fastest player in WNBA history to reach 600 career assists, hitting that mark in just 72 games. Think about that. In less than a season and a half's worth of games, she's already setting all-time benchmarks for playmaking. Earlier this year, before injuries and physical wear slowed her down, Clark went on a streak that didn't even sound real. 6 consecutive games with 20 or more points and 5 or more assists. No one in league history had ever done that before. 6 straight nights of 20 and 5 isn't just good. It's MVP-level output. It's the kind of stretch teams plan game plans around. The Fever themselves highlighted that run, pushing it out on social media, using it to rally all-star support and build momentum around their franchise cornerstone. Then the grind of the season hit, physical discomfort, the back, the groin, minutes needed to be managed, mechanics dipped, fatigue crept in. For a while, the headline shifted from "How high can she go?" 2. Can she stay healthy and effective through this? And that's where this win over the Aces becomes so important. Because this was Clark dropping 35 and bailing her team out. This was Clark in rebuild mode, limited minutes, jumper not fully back, still putting up 12 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, and commanding the game while her teammates absolutely torched the defending champs. This is the first clear sign that she's working her way back toward that 20-5, all-around dominance, but now in a different environment. One where the people around her are far more confident and battle-tested. Earlier in the season, the story was simple. With Clark, they're dangerous. Without her, they're lost. Now that story is outdated. Without her, they've proven they can still win heavy games. With her in a controlled role, they've proven they can obliterate a champion. That's a massive shift. It means when she's finally back to full health, full minutes, and fully locked into her shooting mechanics, she won't be dragging a team behind her. She'll be steering a machine that already knows how to function at a high level. This is how real contenders are built, not overnight, not by one player doing everything, but by a roster that slowly learns how to function without the star, how to play with the star, and how to trust each other when the moment is big. And that's why this one game doesn't just feel like a random blowout in July. It feels like the moment the rest of the league had to sit up and say, okay, this might actually be happening. Which brings us to the bigger question. What does this mean for the future of the WNBA's balance of power? At the end of the day, you can argue opinions all you want, but you can't argue the scoreboard. Fever 109, Aces 75. Third win against the defending champions in 8 days. A 34-point humiliation on their home floor. Sophie Cunningham delivering the most efficient three-point performance in Fever history. Tiasha Harris posting a wild plus 35. Aaliyah Boston owning the paint with 11 rebounds. Kelsey Mitchell dropping 27 points and 8 assists, shredding the selfish label. Caitlin Clark on a minutes restriction, still putting up 12-6-7 and steering a historic blowout. Now add one more piece. When the All-Star break ends and Clark is finally back at 100%, no restrictions, jumper fully tuned, conditioning restored, she's walking into a locker room that has learned how to win with and without her. That combination is terrifying. So I'll leave you with this. Did we just watch the night the WNBA's power structure quietly flipped? Drop your prediction below. Where do the Fever finish this season? And are the Aces still a true contender or just living off past rings? This is Simply Explained. If you want more real breakdowns, not just box scores but context, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready. Because the second half of this season might feel less like a schedule and more like a storyline being rewritten in real time.